Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, or good day, or whatever time it is with you anyway in the world. If someone could let me know if you can see and you can hear and everything looks and sounds as it should do, that would be much appreciated. And thank you very much, obviously, for joining me on this last minute live just for a bit of fun. Carapos, always good to see you in. And we've got Kevin, good to see you in as well from Lakeland, Florida. Hope the weather's pretty nice out there for you guys. So, what are we talking about today? I have no idea. We'll do like we normally do, which is kind of get together. You chuck some questions at me, hashtag Q as always, and we can kind of take a look at talking about some different bits and pieces to do with WordPress, plugins, Elementor, bricks, all those kinds of good things. Good afternoon, Zaki. Hope you're doing it very, very well where you are. Great to see you into today's live stream. Like I say, thank you very much. Clear and beautiful. As I wish I could say was the same about me. But anyway, hope you're all doing fantastically well. And one of the things I want to kind of talk about a little later is some of my findings with recording the tutorial that I did sort of a couple of days ago, which is this particular tutorial on using ACF data alongside WooCommerce in Elementor Pro. And some of the things that kind of popped on there that kind of frustrated me with the whole sort of thing that I really think shouldn't be happening. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Good evening, Dan the Man. Great name. I like that one. That's pretty cool. So yeah, there's a couple of things on there that kind of frustrated me, and I've seen other people kind of come back with some of their frustrations, and I'll give my kind of opinions on those and let you know a little bit later. Ernesto, good to see you back in. Thank you very much for joining in again this week. It's great to see you back. Pretty cool to see you guys in. Like I say, if you've got any questions for me today, just do that hashtag Q for question, and it just makes my life a little easier. Mel, good to see you in from Atlantic City, New Jersey. Good to see some of the American folks in this afternoon. What kind of time is it for you guys out there? I suppose 7 hours behind, mid-morning, I'm assuming, probably out in the States. So probably a nice time. What's it like out there at the moment? What's the weather like? Is it nice and sunny and warm, or is it something other than that? Let me know. Raptor X, good to see you in. Thanks for joining in again today. That's much appreciated for taking time out of your Friday morning, afternoon, evening, whichever it is for you guys, to just kind of hop in and have a chat and talk about a few bits and pieces. So, first of all, let me just ask you guys a question. What have you been working on this week? Has it been an interesting project? Has it been something that's been frustrating? What tools are you using? Let me know, because I'd love to know, and we can kind of have a little chat about the tools that you're using, the projects you're working on, how you found your week, whether it's been positive, whether it's been a struggle. Because I think we all kind of have days or weeks like that where things are not necessarily as straightforward as we would like. We start off on a Monday morning thinking this is going to be a good week and all these plans, and then you get to the middle of the week and things have kind of gone straight out the window and they're nowhere near what you wanted them or expected them to be. Now, as always, if you enjoy the live stream as we go through, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, because it just tells the algorithm that it likes, well, that you guys like what I'm doing around here. So 9:30 in Chicago, rainy day. Doesn't it always rain in Chicago? Isn't that what they say? Great for a coffee and a live stream. I'm with you on that one, apart from the coffee. Shaveen, good to see you in. Thank you very much for joining in today. It's great to see you guys in. So yeah, what's your week been like? Has it been good? Has it been bad? What kind of things you've been working on? What kind of tools are you sort of working with? And have you come across anything this week that you think, man, I wish I'd known about this particular theme, tool, plugin, service, whatever, before? Something that's kind of you made a look at and thinking, wow, this is absolutely fantastic, and I wish I'd known about this a long time ago. Let me know, because again, I'd love to know what tools you were using. Just give me a great sort of opportunity to check these out for myself and see new tools that I really haven't been exposed to or come across. Because as you can imagine, I get lots of companies sending me sort of emails asking me, you know, can we sort of send you our product? Would you do this review and blah, 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 all those kinds of things, of which I don't do any reviews on them anyway. But there's still a limited sort of set when you kind of think there's over 50,000 plugins over on sort of like the repository for WordPress. There's a lot that I've never come across or never had a reason to come across. I've got a couple bookmarked that people have sort of posted about, which I think sound interesting or look interesting. So I will be checking those out and hopefully combining those into another video like I've done in the past, where it's a case of these are plugins you've never heard of. You might want to check these out. They're pretty cool, and give you a quick demo of what they offer and why you might want to check them out. But I really do like to know what you are using, and yeah, just let me know. No, it always snows. Oh man, that's even worse. Chicago snow, man. No thanks. 5:30 p.m. in Bahrain, nice and sunny. So it's basically the end of your day, getting ready for a nice afternoon stroke weekend. Zaki, hope you're having a good time over there and you'll have a fantastic weekend. Isaac, always a pleasure to see you in. Thank you very much for joining in. It's a pleasure to see you back. Oh yeah, Bricks Ultimate really saved me this week. How did it save you? Let me know, because again, like I say, there's so many great tools out there, so many circumstances that we all kind of come across on the daily that we're looking for tools, we're looking for solutions, we're looking for better ways of working than what we might be using right now. So please do share me on some WooCommerce Ajax issues on Bricks. Right, okay. I hate working with WooCommerce. I've got to be honest, it's one of those platforms that I really don't like it that much. And it's a shame that we don't have any competing sort of tools out there for working with, e-commerce. I know we've got, North Commerce is still kind of in beta and so on, but the fact that they actually want you to pay for that beta, it's a bit of a pain, really. Anyway, I should do a review about Breakdance Builder. Sorry, Neil, I don't think that's actually going to be coming. I've covered Breakdance when it first came out, and I liked what it offered. The problem is, I'm not really a big fan of the way the company's structured and the way that it does certain things. So, from my point of view, Breakdance isn't one of those tools that I'll be covering on the channel. Unless something drastic changes in the way things are run over there, it's probably not going to happen, I'm afraid. So, sorry about that. Minium WP, good to see you in as well. Thank you very much for joining in. And what do we have? Okay, so we've got a couple of questions coming in. Yes, it's garbage, but there's a lot of dollars in that field. Right, let's have a little look at some of these questions. And anybody that's sort of joined in now, as we sort of got this stream going, if you've got any questions for me, anything you want to ask me, if you just do hashtag Q for question, just means I can search against what you're sort of asking me, and it makes my life a little easier to be able to focus on answering those questions. Dan the Man, what are your thoughts on Crocoblock right now? I find it conflicts quite often with other plugins, more than most other plugins. If I'm brutally honest, I haven't really used Crocoblock that much recently. I've kind of been out of the dynamic data side of things, and I only really use those functions when it comes to the Crocoblock tools anyway, Jet Engine, Jet Smart Filters, Jet Search, and so on. So I can imagine there's a potential for conflicts and issues there with something that is as complex and as comprehensive as a tool like Jet Engine. If you're kind of referring to other plugins that's part of that Crocoblock suite, I really have no sort of experience of using them other than dabbling maybe once or twice in the past, but they're not really the kinds of tools that I've got any real use for. So I can't really comment if there's been more problems than they may have been in the past, because I haven't really been using it. That will change over the next coming months because, as I said in the previous live streams this week, I am kind of going back to the roots of the channel a little bit more, and hopefully you've seen that in the recent videos that have come out, where I'll be focusing more on dynamic data. Obviously, Jet Engine is going to feature in there. I will be taking a look at MetaBox. I'll be taking a look at things like CubeWP and things like that, alongside tools like Advanced Custom Fields, the free and the pro version, and some of the other tools that are kind of coming out that give us more dynamic options, and the sort of tools we can use to build things like Bricks, Elementor Pro, sort of generate blocks, Cadence Blocks Pro, maybe Quickly, and tools like that. So there will be a lot more of that kind of content. So that would probably open me up to finding out, if there are issues with some of those Crocoblock plugins and the tools, and what kind of issues they are. I generally find more things like that when I'm working on a more complex project that gives me more reason to delve into some of the more intermediate advanced features that those kind of plugins and tools offer. So I will take a look, and I will sort of, if I find anything, I will definitely report it back to the people that know at Crocoblock and see if we can kind of push anything that I might find through to get those things sorted out. But at this point in time, I've got no basis for, going one or the other way. Video Boy, any suggestions on cheaper alternatives to WP Grid Builder? Now, WP Grid Builder is probably one of the best tools out there for creating your facets, for creating your filters and things along those lines, and if you want to use it for the grid side of things. But I know from the sort of like the stream we did earlier in the week that the sort of price of that in your country is probably a little bit on the high side, once you kind of look at non-parity pricing. So I would suggest taking a look at Search and Filter Pro. There's a free version, which is okay, but the pro version does have a lot more. It's not the nicest looking plugin. It's not the prettiest from the dashboard side of things, and it's not necessarily the most straightforward and obvious plugin to use, but it does work pretty well. It is relatively fast from what I've tested. I haven't tested it with tens of thousands of records, but take a look at that. Try the free version, and if you like the free version and how it works and you kind of get along with it, then the pro version is something like $20 a license, which, isn't bad in any kind of conversion, even if you're not dealing with parity pricing. So you could kind of like, if you wanted to use this, you could definitely then use it as part of a project and factor that into the pricing structure for the project itself. But that would be my sort of suggestion if you want a lower cost alternative. And I know that the version 3 is coming out at some point, but the developer, I kind of keep in touch with via Twitter. I know that's in the sort of beta phases, but I don't think there's a massive incentive to kind of push that out quickly. So fingers crossed it won't be that long before we at least get a beta version to test it, try it, and sort of squash any bugs that might be there. But that would be the one I would recommend if cost is the sort of the primary driving factor. So hopefully, Video Boy, that helps answer that question. Okay, what else do we have? RaptorX, get your take. Do you close down your software each day, or like me, leave the PC on 500 plus tabs? If shut down, do you have a checklist to starting back up? What key software do you use each day? I'm a Mac person, but even when I do have a PC as well. But even when I did, I always put things on standby unless I needed to restart, just because it's so much quicker to just literally go in, press a key, sort of walk in, and with a Mac, like anything with a thingy watch, Apple Watch, it will literally unlock it for me. So I can just press the key, it'll unlock straight away, and I can be up and running and working. I don't really think there's a massive need these days to shut everything down. I think it just slows down what you're doing and just ultimately makes you a little bit less productive. So no, I don't shut things down unless I really have to. And the Mac, the nice thing is the Mac Studio or the Mac Minis, the kind of thing like that, they really don't take up hardly any power when they're on start. They don't take hardly any power when they're actually running. So no, I don't shut things down. Dan the Man, how is Quickly progressing in my view? I haven't looked at Quickly in the last probably say 3 months. So I haven't seen what changes they've made. But prior to that, it was progressing pretty quickly. When you think they brought out the query builder, they brought out WooCommerce support, and there was another thing they brought out, another major sort of feature they brought out, as well as updating the interface and so on. So it was pretty quick. It was moving forward at a pretty high pace. The fact that Louis is the only person, or was, I'm assuming still is, the sort of the main or core developer behind it, it's surprising how quick he's brought a lot of these features to the table. But I think it's progressing well. I don't know what the uptake on it is. It would be nice to think that there are plenty of people that are using it, but I do think that maybe it needs to be simplified or give you some sort of an easier route to getting started, because I know that in the last live stream, and I've talked to a few other people, it's not necessarily the most obvious when you're coming over from other tools, maybe Bricks or sort of Oxygen or those types of tools, for exactly how to do certain sort of things inside there. So I think it'll change, it'll grow, it'll expand, and as more users come on board and more feedback is given, that'll be taken on board and it will become a better product. But I do still think it's a very interesting product. I think it's approaching things in a different way, and it's very much a lot more like a page builder, but a Gutenberg-based page builder that taps into the block functionality. I like what it does. I just think sometimes it could probably just be a little bit more obvious in how you do certain things. But like I said, that's probably more to do with my ignorance about it than it is to do with this actual software itself. Mel, any sense why Brainstorm Force has yet to release Spectra Pro? Well, the last thing I saw, which was yesterday when I read about it, was that it is in sort of pre-release, which would assume it's an RC, a release candidate, and that they say that they're heavily testing it before releasing. So that's all I kind of know about Spectra Pro. It has been an awful long time since they talked about releasing Spectra Pro. So it would be good that if they get it out to kind of, get it into people's hands so we can see what it offers. There's talk of the dynamic content in there and approaching things in a slightly different way. So I'm hopeful we'll see it in the next couple of weeks. And hopefully then I can get my hands on it and I can test it out and see how it stacks up and compares to a lot of the other tools out there. The block-based tools, things like, Cadence blocks, Generate blocks, Stackable Pro, those types of tools. Other than that, that's pretty much all I know. So hopefully it will be something that won't be too much longer. And we will be at least be able to get it, test it, and see, how good it is and what it actually brings to the table. And if it's something that has a new take on what we're used to, because as I've said in the past, Brainstorm Force are very much a company that look at what their competitors are doing and then bring out a product that maybe takes the best approach from each of those to create a pretty simplistic, streamlined product. I've kind of liked the way they've done things in the past, and we'll have to see how that actually pans out and how it works out when we take a look at Spectra Pro. Fingers crossed it'll be a good product. Now, as always, if you are enjoying the live stream and you want to help me get more people to know about it, hit that thumbs up button because it really does help. Okay. Minimum WP. Does MetaBox still have any advantages that an ACF Pro? I want to create a custom post type of product and get rid of Woo. I think the main advantage that MetaBox has, and I'm coming from someone that only knows a little bit about MetaBox and how it works, is that it has a lot of built-in functionality that you might need to have other plugins to do. For example, the sort of front-end form function that you have is built into MetaBox and is sort of like one of the add-on sort of parts you have when you buy MetaBox. Whereas if you want that option when it comes to ACF, you're either going to need to use some kind of form plugin, or you're going to have to use something like ACF Advanced. I think it's Advanced if I get that right. Anyway, which is free to use, but it is another plugin you have to maintain. So that would be the kind of the core thing that I think is definitely the biggest strength it has at the moment, or the sort of like, yeah, the kind of one of the differences it has. I think the main strength that you have when using advanced custom fields is that it is so well supported and so well integrated into so many other plugins and tools and themes and things like that. And there's an awful lot of help and support and educational content and things out there on ACF that it kind of helps set it up as being probably the best one out there to give you the most options over some of the other ones. That's not to say it's better. It's just, it's probably one of the OGs, and therefore there's a lot more support for it. That is changing. You know, Jet Engine's being more supported. MetaBox is being more supported. But yeah, that would be sort of where I would look at it. It's like, does it have specific things that you need that you would rather have all contained inside the one platform, i.e. MetaBox, or are you happy using the core function that ACF gives you and then augmenting that with additional plugins, or maybe, you know, sort of getting your hands dirty and coding various different parts to get exactly what you want out of what you're trying to achieve by bypassing WooCommerce and creating something of your own. Hope that helps anyway. Okay. Let's have a look. RaptorX, thanks for the answer for shutting down. I agree with Mac versus PC. Can you suggest which is best use unless it's too difficult to answer? This, I think, is incredibly subjective. For me, I think if you just look at a PC and you look at a Mac, then it comes down to which operating system do you prefer? Do you prefer the upgradability that you have with a PC? Or do you prefer the sort of just one box with, once you've bought it, you've got it, that the Mac gives you? But when you kind of look beyond that, and this is kind of where I've come from, if you take a Mac and a phone and an iPad and maybe, you know, some other things, and you start to get into that ecosystem, that's when I think the true strength of the Mac totally whoops what you can do with a PC. And this is coming from someone that has been a PC person for probably 25 years plus, built numerous PCs myself, built them for students and clients and things in the past, taught DOS and operating systems and all that kind of stuff. I prefer using the Mac now for so many different things because that ecosystem, which is what everybody talks about, but the reality is when you're actually in that ecosystem, you start to realize the benefits. And I think that's where Apple really have you, is once you buy into it, it becomes kind of all-encompassing in your workday. But for me, I absolutely love what I've got. It costs a lot more and you don't have that upgradability. But on the flip side, you have a much longer shelf life when it comes to, you know, the Mac side of things with this software and all those types of things. I mean, I've had my Mac Minis now for 2.5 years. I've had my MacBook Air, which is the first MacBook Air base model, you know, with the M1 chip in it. And that is still as fast and as absolutely lovely to use as it was the day when I bought it. Now, I bought a Dell sort of laptop, and that was absolute pants within the space of, well, it was just rubbish. You boot it up and it would be the hard drive, which is SSD, would just be going and going and going, indexing, I'm assuming, you know, whether you turn that off or not. It was just painful to use. And the price difference was about £200 in favor of the Dell. You know, that was about £200 cheaper. And I would never waste my money on one of those machines again. Really wouldn't. Something like the MacBook Air was just so much better. So But like I say, if you look in isolation, I think you kind of just have to weigh up which is your preference: operating system versus sort of upgradability versus no upgradability. That's where you kind of come down to, and your budget, you know. But if I was going to start again and I was looking for something that was powerful, that allowed me to do all the things I want to do, which is like, you know, video editing, photography, all those types of things, music production, and so on, I would 100% the Mac Mini Pro, which starts at about like 1,300 quid, about no, it's about £1,400, about $1,300. Even the base model is insanely powerful for what you want to do. So yeah, let's have a look. So one more question. As a UK business, have you or do you use eco-power methods to run your business, studio, etc.? Eco such as solar power? No, because I run the business from home. So we just literally using our home thing. As far as the eco side of things goes, that's one of the kind of reasons I moved over to tools like the Mac, because general power consumption on something like that is so minimal in comparison. I mean, if you take my PC, the video card in there was like a 300 watt video card, and then once you put your sort of your power supply in, you're talking like a 600 watt power supply, compared to a Mac Studio, which is about 30 watts under sort of average load, and maybe up to about 45, I think it is, under heavy load. So the difference in that power-wise alone is massive difference. But that's not to say that I wouldn't in the future. You know, it all kind of depends on a lot of different factors. Yeah. So if you've got any more questions for me, anybody that's kind of coming in a little bit later, make sure you do #Q so I can see you're asking me a question. It just makes my life a little easier. Pixter, good to see you in as well. Michael Forster, good to see you in. Jack, good to see you. Who else do we have coming in? Zaki, with the latest version 6.2 update, can you provide information on any of the new features or enhancements that offer significant advantages to both developers and users? I don't think there are significant advantages right now. I think the main kind of changes we're going to see, obviously you've got security fixes. The thing to bear in mind is that the latest update has now broken shortcodes in a certain way. So lots of people are having problems with shortcodes. So that's something to consider. If you use shortcodes, I definitely wouldn't recommend updating to, I think it's 6.2.1, I think. As far as other things go, I don't really keep up to date that much when it comes to the core WordPress, because most of the sort of advancements are going on in things like full site editing, you know, Gutenberg itself. And you kind of, if you use those, then you want to keep up to date with it. And obviously, you've got the security issues and the security fixes and things like that and bug fixes. But I don't think they've brought out anything that's sort of major change-wise since probably 6.0 was released. And even then, you know, most of the kind of big changes are to do with the full site editing and Gutenberg and so on. So I don't think there's anything massive that is kind of we need to sort of worry too much about, especially from a developer's point of view. But I could be talking rubbish. So if anybody knows better than me, by all means do pop that into the chat. Just let us know. Michael, I'm thinking of alternatives to WordPress since I think too many updates for a full working website, especially Woo Web Shop. Can't disagree with you there. There are an awful lot of updates which are an awful lot of pain. What kind of things are you talking about? I'm assuming you're probably looking at something like Webflow. Are you also taking a look at tools like PineGrow, which allows you to sort of, you can still tap in and integrate with WordPress if you want to, or you can just use it as a sort of visual builder. You know, what tools are you talking about, Michael? It'd be interesting to sort of see. And have you tested any of these tools out? If you have, what are your kind of thoughts and feelings? I mean, I know a lot of people love what you can do with Webflow, but don't necessarily love the pricing structure and the changes in the pricing. Recently, we started to get bigger sites. There's a very quick jump to an insane amount of money. But what are you talking about? What tools have you looked at? I'd love to know. Let me know. Just answer that. Again, just let us know. Pretty cool. And anybody else got any suggestions, other tools you kind of looked at when it comes to sort of potentially moving away from WordPress? What would be the tool or tools that would kind of tempt you away? It'd be interesting to sort of find out. Okay. Isaac, my first Mac was an iMac 2011 and I sold last year because I was just getting too tired. Now using a MacBook Pro 14. I think once you kind of start to get into the sort of Mac ecosystem, if you consider the fact that you had that from 2011 until 2012, and let's just say that it gave you good working until, let's just say, I don't know, 2 years prior to you getting rid of it, that kind of, when you compare how much more you'd upgrade a PC in general over that period of time, I think that's incredible value for money. And I think this is one of those areas that a lot of people kind of miss out on when they they compare the pricing of something like the Mac to something like, a PC, once you kind of get into that Apple ecosystem when it comes to software, for example, Apple software, there's a lot bundled with it, which is actually quite good, but you never pay for another operating system update, whereas with Windows, you do. Once you kind of buy into something like, let's say, for example, Final Cut Pro and so on. I mean, Final Cut Pro 10 has been going for something like 8 or 9 years. And once you bought it, you don't pay for it again. Whereas a lot of other companies will you'll buy iterative sort of versions of it. So there's a lot more, I think, go into it. And when you're sort of on the outside looking in, it can look like there's an awful lot of money you have to spend. But there's the difference between the lifespan of the product and the software compared to what you might have on the other side of the fence. Like I say, I'm not a non-PC person. I still think PCs are awesome bits of kit. I love the flexibility. But from my point of view and from my workflow these days, Apple just makes more sense for me. That wouldn't stop me from using a PC. I still go on the PC probably every other day, if not more than that, to do certain different things. But it just wouldn't be my main PC or my main computer for use these days because I'm so much quicker with the whole interoperability that we've got between the operating system, the software, in sort of like the different hardware pieces you've got and the different services and things you use. So from that point of view, it just is a better platform for me for what I want to do. Hey, good to see you in. I had a MacBook Air from 2012 to 2022. 2012 was a good year for Apple. They made them right. And I think 2021 was definitely another good year for Apple because let's be honest about it, when it comes to the M1s, and the M2 is more of an interim upgrade, I think, but the M1 was, for want of a better term, and Dave Foy will love me for this, it was a game changer. The power that packed in, the MacBook Air, like I say, base model with 8 gigs of RAM, I can edit multi-streams of 4K video on there without any problem whatsoever. And that is insane for a laptop that you can pick up now for about £800, brand new. That's just absolutely insane. So, I do like me Apple stuff these days. I've become a fanboy. Still use it for traveling. You can use the browser to edit just fine. Exactly. That's the whole point. You updated to Mac Studio last year. Me too. I absolutely love the Mac Studio. And I'm hoping they'll bring an M3 Mac Studio out at some point in the near future. And I'd love to see a 32-inch sort of, not a Pro Display XDR because that's $4,500, but one that sits in the middle. Doesn't have to be a HDR screen. Don't care about that. Anyway, what other questions do we have? So anybody that's new in right now, just if you've got any questions for me, if you can just do #Q for question, just makes my life easy. And if you are enjoying the stream and you get value from it, hit that thumbs up button just to tell the algorithm that you enjoy this kind of content. Okay. Let's have a little look. What else do we have? Draw. I hope I said that correctly. Many thanks for all the videos. My pleasure. Can you make a video about your studio setup? I've already done that. Let me just see if I can find the link for you. And if I can find the link for you, I shall just give you that link so you can check it out. But there is already, like I say, a video up there. There's actually 2 on there. One sort of from my studio in the house, which was sort of the old one. And then there's the sort of the new one, which is where I am right now, which is where I sort of converted this and built this specifically for it. Right, let's have a little look. Let me just copy that link. And I shall pop that up on the live chat for you. So if I just pop back out of here. So Draw, if you want to take a look at this, there's the link for you. Oh man, I hate this annoying crap that you get when you copy the link in that way. Okay, so there's the link for you. So have a little check of that and you can see exactly what is included in my studio. And if for any reason that link doesn't work, just simply go ahead and just go onto YouTube and just do a #WPTutsStudio and the video will come up on there so you can check that out. No problem at all. Jack, I'm missing on vertical accordions. Right, I don't really use vertical accordions, but let's have a little look what you're asking me, sir. Okay, let's have a little look. Get rid of that. Okay. I have 4 custom post types that I want to display in vertical accordions in various nested grids and lists. Can anyone help us suggest the best route forward for this? I have 4 or 5 custom post types that I want to display in vertical accordions in this way. Have you? I don't know what tool you're using. Are you using Elementor? Are you using Generate Press, Generate Blocks, Bricks? Let me know what you're using because it'll kind of give a better understanding of how you could potentially approach that. But without knowing that, it's kind of a little bit difficult for me to be able to potentially ask that question. Okay, Video Boy. Aside from hosting and care plans, any suggestions what more stuff to offer for recurring income? That's a difficult one because, I mean, your care plans and your hosting, it kind of comes down to what your care plans include, because you can structure your care plans in multiple different ways. You could have it so it's a care plan that is sort of handling the maintenance side of things and also the sort of license management. You could split off then a sort of core content update, so you'll add content into the site for the client. You could have a design update where they can have iterative design updates, new pages added in, changing the structure of different things. There's lots of different ways you could kind of approach that. It's very easy to kind of lump care plans and have everything included in there, but maybe it's worthwhile taking a look at going, okay, let's section up my care plans into various different sort of either tiers or just different types of plans. So you've got your initial software license one, which you'll make a bit of profit on. You've then got your sort of maintenance plan, which keeps the sort of platform updated and handles any technical support questions you may have from the client. And then obviously you've got your sort of content management side of things, which could be a totally separate sort of setup. Apart from that, I mean, there are probably a multitude of different things you could do, but I really think it comes down to what value you could add to your client. I think that's the thing to consider is if you could identify what pain points your potential or your current clients actually have, then you could probably formulate things around it. So for example, let's just say you've got, you want to sort of offer them a service. You could white label something like the privacy policy and the terms and conditions and the cookie policy, those sides of things. You could literally white label a third-party service like Termageddon. You could white label that service, so you're not giving legal advice or anything like that, but what you're doing is you're taking a sort of portion of the amount of money that you were charging the client and the cost to you, and then you literally just have that being kept up to date because it's relatively an automated service. You might have to log in from time to time as new laws come on board, and then you can log in and you can make sure you check off the relevant options, and then that will update the policies live on their website. There's a chargeable option. You could also look at things like providing GDPR compliant analytics using tools like Fathom, for example, which you could then send them out a sort of weekly, monthly reports on what they're doing. You could take a look at doing things like handling the marketing. So if they're doing marketing via Google Ads, Facebook ads, those types of things, and also linking that back in through, UTM parameters and so on to be able to handle that and then track it and then again send them out reports. There's lots of different things like that you could take a look at. Obviously, there's SEO as well, which is another one you could look at. But I think there are lots of different things you could look at that you could consider like microservices that may give you different revenue streams that you could look at adding in to what you currently offer that may sit outside your kind of care plans. Hopefully, that's a couple of options. But if anybody else got options, any thoughts, the things that you were doing to create more recurring revenue sort of streams in your freelance business, your agency, whatever it is, when working with web design clients, pop those into the chat as well so we can all benefit from everybody's suggestions, what's working for you, what you've tried that maybe didn't work. It's always good to kind of share those different stories to kind of get an idea of, where everybody's at and what you've done, what's been successful and maybe what's not so. Anyway, Video Boy, I hope that's helped a little bit. Marcus, is it still worth for the small budget to recommend WordPress? When I think about vulnerabilities, maintenance, effort for performance, initial setup, it's everything else than cheap. Again, yeah, I think this is one of those things that, there's a cost to free, whether we like it or not. While WordPress might be powering 40+% of the internet, there are inherent issues with using it. So I think it comes down to if you're working with clients, and I'm going to make the assumption that you're talking about working with, paying clients, then yes, you do have to ask yourself that question, because once you take a look at that and then you also consider, the cost of the hosting and maintaining that, domain renewals and registration, software licenses, you might pass that off to the client, but chances are 9 times out of 10, you can pass it off to the client, but you'll still handle it in some kind of care plan or maintenance plan. So you still end up doing it. There's a lot that you have to handle and a lot of things that you have to deal with that make WordPress not ideal. This is where you may want to take a look at dealing with something like wordless headpress or headless WordPress even. To be honest, it's only squash in there as well. There's no alcohol, no vodka or anything. There's an option you could kind of take a look at, going headless. So that way you still get all the benefits of your knowledge and understanding of working with WordPress, but you remove a lot of the vulnerabilities. And if you don't update immediately, then those vulnerabilities become less of a problem to you. But obviously then there's also alternatives like Webflow. And I say Webflow because, let's be honest about it, it's the most well-known out there. There are other services that do similar types of things, but you're ending up with a totally maintained platform. So much like Apple, for example, they deal with everything. So you're dealing with the software, the hardware, the updates are catered for, all those things. Then you kind of have to weigh up the cost to you and the client. Does it mean that you have to increase your sort of charges? But there are other alternatives out there. So I totally agree, and I get where you're coming from with it. And I do think that it is very easy to consider a platform like WordPress as free when the reality of it is it's anything but free when you look at the time, the effort, the updates, the maintenance, the vulnerabilities, and all those things that you've talked about there. They all need to be factored in, and we don't always factor them into our thought process when we're kind of looking for the best solutions for our projects. Okay. Mark Free Media Studio. As an avid Elementor user, having skills now using ACF, Crockblock, working with post types, profile pages, etc., is it worth sticking with Elementor or jumping ship and learning Bricks Builder? No, this is a interesting question. And I need you to take a drink just so I could answer it. I think the most important thing you have to ask yourself is there a benefit to you, or are there benefits to you learning a new platform from scratch? Yes, if you're working with the sort of container element in Elementor and you're kind of working with Flexbox and you're used to working with those types of things, the transition will be easier. But there is a learning curve moving over to a different platform. So that's the first thing you have to kind of consider. Do you have the time and the sort of mental capacity? In other words, do you, when you come home from work or you finish doing your sort of day job working with Elementor and so on, do you want to then go and learn something else and kind of have two things going on in your head while maintaining current existing Elementor sites and now learning and maybe implementing Bricks or another alternative moving forward? The second thing to ask yourself is there anything in Bricks, or is there anything about Bricks that you feel is that important that it warrants you moving from what you already know, comfortable with, and probably very fast working with? If the answer to those questions is yes, then I think it's definitely worthwhile you testing it out and investing some time and effort. Look, I'll be the first to say that there are no perfect solutions. Elementor has issues. When they bring out updates, there are things that go wrong. There are things that have gone wrong and haven't been updated in a long time. Bricks, when it brings out updates, there are issues. There are things in there that maybe work in a different way to what I personally would like. And, none of these platforms are perfect. I do think there are certain aspects about Elementor that are probably better for most users because it means that you've got this support, this ecosystem is much more mature. But on the flip side, I prefer the whole transparency and the speed in which Bricks, for example, is moving forward. I think it's a platform that has matured very, very quickly. But like I say, they're not perfect. So ask yourself those questions. Are you going to gain something from moving? If you are, and you think that's enough of a reason to sort of jump ship to something like Bricks, then go for it. But otherwise, ask yourself, what is the cost to you from your time, your money, and the future support? Because it's very difficult when you're supporting, a bunch of clients that you've been working with in one platform, so using whether it's like Elementor or whether it's a specific theme you've used or some other tools, and you're also building client sites in another one, and that's your main focus. When you move forward, it's easy to keep up to date with, let's say, Bricks, for example. But when it comes to keeping up to date with Elementor, which you were kind of like trying to not use anymore, that becomes more of a problem because you don't have an incentive to keep up with it, and you just want your clients to move over to a different platform, i.e. Bricks. So I hope that kind of answers the question. I don't think you have to. I don't think you need to jump ship. I think it's just a case of whether you see the merits in it outweigh the negatives for staying with Elementor, for example. And let's be honest about it. Elementor has made strides forward to become much better than it has been let's just say a year prior. They do seem to be listening more to the users. They do seem to be implementing more of those features that we actually want and need, and maybe not releasing some of those silly little things that most of us couldn't care about, the notes, the sort of scrubbers, those little insignificant things that were low-hanging fruit. But then on the flip side of it, there are still issues with how you use Elementor. For example, I sort of did this video this week, which was the sort of working with the loop builder, which I know is still an alpha stroke beta. But for some reason, when you kind of made the image a link, so for example, any of these vehicles, when you made that a link, it changed the dimensions of the image. As soon as you took the link off, the dimensions went back. Weird little things. When I updated something inside working with the loop grid, for some reason, the conditions for when that template should be used all disappeared. So I had to go back in and add in all those conditions again. Silly little things that you kind of think, these shouldn't be happening, but they do, so yeah. Probably didn't answer your question, but hopefully it's kind of at least pointed you in a direction maybe you hadn't thought of. I don't know. Hopefully I answered it at least a little bit. Okay, so let's go back to, let's have a look. Raptor X. Are blogs still a good investment with the rise of AI such as ChatGPT? I heard people saying blogs would be dead. I think we're in a real state of flux at the moment when it comes to AI, and we're coming to the way that search engines are going to rank that information. There's changes in Google now, in the Google search, which means that it's going to rank things on different factors, which may penalize AI-based content while not saying AI is bad. I think we're in such a market or such a position right now where everything is just all over the place, that tools like ChatGPT and AI are sort of advancing so quickly and bringing on so many new features and ways of working. I think one thing this will do is will change the way in which search operates. And I think this is something that probably Google have noticed, and is probably why they may be updating their algorithm, why they're heavily investing in AI themselves. So I think the way in which we search and look for information is going to change, this year and moving forward, because of tools like ChatGPT, tools like Perplexity AI, tools like, sort of like Bing search and so on. These are all going to change the way that search moves forward. Do I think blogs are only dead? No, because again, much the same as like art, where you've got AI art. It's great, it's fantastic, but the reality of it is it doesn't have that human element. It doesn't necessarily have that creative thing that we have. You've got to think, this is being trained on millions of pieces of information. And let's take ChatGPT as a good example. But it's still limited. It still only has so much that it can call upon. ChatGPT up until 2021, September 2021. Anything after that, doesn't really know about it. So that limits the effectiveness of what you can do with it. That will change. All these things will change. And things, we will have it taking over certain aspects. But to get the best out of it, you need to understand how to prompt. And that is a skill that is being developed. And I think that's something, as a web designer, web developer, or working with clients in this field, we can all benefit from researching and experiment with, to kind of get a feel for this, so you can then use this to augment your services. And again, to go back to the question that I had earlier on from, where did I see it? Sorry, from Video Boy. No, I tell you, it wasn't Video Boy. The question I answered earlier on anyway. Oh, sorry, yeah, Video Boy, about income streams. AI is another great way of having an income stream. Let's say, for example, you've got a client that can write out the basics of what they want to say, but they don't like what it says, or they want it more succinct, or they want it in a certain tone of voice. They can supply that to you, and then you can use a tool like ChatGPT, tell it how you want it to actually write it, and then make what is arguably probably not that great into something that is much, much better and more effective. And therefore, you're not dealing with plagiarism side of things, because you're literally rewording what someone has already written that is their own work. I do this all the time. When I'm creating sort of any kind of, so let's say, marketing content, I will write it out in my tone of voice, and then I will run it through something like ChatGPT and see if it gives me a better end result. And if it is, then I'll run it through some plagiarism checker, like with Grammarly AI, for example. I can use that to check things and, make sure my grammar is spot on and all those types of things. And ultimately what I get is what I wanted to say in the tone of voice that I wanted to say it, and generally grammatically better than I would actually write it, and also a bit more focused than I would potentially write it. So I think to answer kind of two questions, blogs dead? No. ChatGPT, AI tools, another great way of having another income stream that you can use with clients moving forward. 2 for the price of 1 there. What can I say? Okay. If anybody has any more questions, please do put that hashtag Q, because I would love to make sure I answer as much as I can. New t-shirt, wordless head press. That would be a good, actually, now you can say, wonder if I could get an illustration of that as well done for me. That would be quite fun, wouldn't it? Get some AI illustrations for wordless head press. Anyway, Isaac, I can see jump ship. Now, I know exactly what you're probably talking about there, and that would be, should you move away from Elementor over to Bricks? Tell me if I'm wrong. Phil Davis, very yellow squash. What can I say? It's I'm dehydrated. If you know, you know. Okay. Let's have a little look. Michael. Still have a Brizzy subscription but never used it. Maybe as an alternative to WordPress. I'm interested to talk about Brizzy Cloud. We talked about this, I think, on the last live stream. I talked about this a couple of times in the past. I do like Brizzy Cloud. And if you want to get away from WordPress and you want to go for wordless headpress, which it will now forever be known as, then yeah, Brizzy Cloud is a viable option. And it has matured considerably. And if you take a look, let me see if I can find this a second. Brizzy have just released the Academy, I think they've called it. So let me just have a little look on here a second, and I'll share it with you guys. Once my keyboard comes back to life. And there's 2 courses on there from me, which is, one of them is getting started with Brizzy, but the other one is using Brizzy Cloud. So if you don't know about it or you don't know how to use it, that's a good way of being able to get up to speed quite quickly. I wonder if I can actually find this. Bear with me a second. It is on you somewhere. There we go. Right. Let me just copy this link and then I can share it with everybody. And if you want to take a look at it, you can do. But you've got the Brizzy Academy. There we go. Sound's not good. Anybody else suffering with the sound? Or is it maybe a bit loud kind of thing because I was a bit too close to the microphone? Let me just move that away a bit. There we go. Is that better? So yeah, if you take a look at that link, you'll see that there are a couple of courses on here. So if we go to, for example, Brizzy Cloud, there's Brizzy 101, which is the one I've done, and also there should be Brizzy Cloud on here somewhere, or there was the other day, unless they've taken that off. But there was one for Brizzy Cloud as well, which is a step-by-step on how to get started using Brizzy Cloud and all those kinds of good things. There we go, Brizzy Cloud. 2.5 hours with 41 lessons. So you can, if you sort of want to take a look at how to use Brizzy Cloud, there's 41 lessons on there on exactly how to use all the different features of Brizzy Cloud. Check it out. Like I say, there's no cost to that. It's completely free. You can access that. And this is one of those areas where if you want to, you can test out, you can see, are these tools kind of tools that you could use? Are they going to do what you want them to do before you spend any money on it? And this is one of the things that I do if I'm doing research. I'll take a look at a bunch of videos, tutorials and kind of big demos of how things work to see if it's something that I think is interesting and something that I would actually use myself. So if you are considering Brizzy in any way, shape or form, and you want to see what the cloud version offers, I would recommend that. As I say, there's 2.5 hours. You can skip through to whatever you want in there. There's a lot of options inside there. There's a lot of different tools inside there. And it's matured considerably. And in my opinion, it is definitely the way that Brizzy should go moving forward, is to focus on this side of things. Hey, Volker, good to see you in, my man. How are you doing, sir? So yeah, have a little look at that if you want to. Like I say, link is in the chat section, so you can check that out. I think it's just brizzy.io/Brizzy-Academy, or you can search for Brizzy Academy online, and that should bring the info up for you. Okay, so anybody else got any questions? We've got 10 minutes left on the stream, so if you do have any questions for me, hashtag Q for question, so I can easily find out what you're asking. Mark, for your studios, thanks. Hopefully that answered your question anyway, Mark. So hopefully you've kind of got an idea of how I would approach it. That's what I would look at doing. If I was thinking, do I want to go? Grass isn't always greener. Bricks is a great platform, but there are still things that are missing that you might need. And if that is the case, then it's not a good fit right now. But I would really suggest that if you are potentially thinking of, trialing bricks with any kind of conviction to move over to it, I would grab it while it's on Lifetime right now. Because while it's on Lifetime, you can test it out, you can play with it and find it if you like it, and you can still get your money back while that Lifetime license is open until it goes to the sort of like the annual subscription. You'll be able to get your money back during that period, unless something's changed, but that's what they sort of did. And I would say that's a pretty compelling reason to invest in it. And it will keep on going up in price. So if you grab it, you're going to lock it in at that price now and you can get it for lifetime. I know a lot of people that have done the same thing because they wanted to make sure that they kind of had access to this moving forward without having to worry about, missing out on that lifetime deal. Anyway, that's what I would suggest. Volker, very well, thank you. Hope you're well too. I am very, very good. Thank you very much. It's Friday and the weekend is coming up, and that's always a good thing. So I can't complain. Hope everything's okay with you, and you know what I'm talking about. Hope everything's good. Anyway, where did we go? Where did I have that question? Elementor Pro in the accordion. Have you tested the nested accord or the new sort of like test thingy for it? I can't think what it's called. The experiment, the nested elements, which gives you the ability to kind of nest inside the accordion. Have you taken a look at that? Because that to me would be the best way of doing it, because then you can create whatever kind of layout you want and drop that into that accordion layout, and it just makes it a lot easier than the way you had to do it with this kind of a hacky way of doing it, which is creating templates and then taking the template shortcode and putting that into the sort of the content. It was just all a bit of a pain in the butt, to be honest, but that's what I would look at doing, is taking a look at those nested sort of options, those nested templates, and seeing how that would work and if that would give you the ability to do it. So try that out. Give it a go. Okay, would I ever do any tutorials on the REST API? I'll never say never, but I don't have any plans to do it at this point in time. I've dabbled with it a little bit, and I can see the benefits of it, but I've never really had that much of a call for it. So maybe in the future, but it would take a bit of investigating to see if I could find a viable use case to make it something that would be useful and interesting to people. So at this point in time, no plans for it. I think nested tabs. I thought the nested accordions were there as well. Maybe I'm wrong there, Marcus. Maybe it is just the tabs. But it's going to come at some point. This is the whole point of it. I mean, they're literally doing what Bricks has done several months ago, which was they nested, which gives you the accordion. It gives you the slider, and it gives you the tabs. And that works in the same way that Elementor are implementing it. So I think it's only natural to think that even if it's not there right now, it will definitely be coming in the very near future. So keep an eye on it either way. That's the thing clients need most help with, is writing what they do and what they sell. They're so busy they don't even have time to work with a writer. And also copywriting, good copywriting is expensive, and there's no substitute for it. AI is good, but it's not a substitute for a good copywriter that understands your business. But if you start to get used to working with the prompts and you start to understand the prompts when it comes to tools like ChatGPT, you can get it to do an awful lot for you. And even if it's not up to the standard of a good quality copywriter, it's probably better than what most of us or most clients will be able to write themselves. And therefore, it gives them a better tone of voice. Plus the fact, let's say you've got a couple of people in a company that each of them are writing content for different parts of the website. That means that you end up with this disjointed voice on the website. The tone of voice can be very disjointed if you just take their content. Whereas if you run that through something like an AI tool like ChatGPT, or Grammarly AI or Grammarly Go, which is their AI kind of option, you can at least get that to be rewritten in the same tone of voice and give a more consistent approach across the entire website, without having to go back to the client and say, look, this doesn't gel with this. If they're not confident in doing that, then I think that would be probably a better way of doing things than putting what they supply up on screen, to sort of like not necessarily do the best job that they could do if they had a better writer. Okay, let's have a little look. Any other questions? So do we have any more questions? If not, I'm going to kind of wind this down. If you've got a question for me, hashtag Q Rodney. I missed that one, sorry. What do we have? How do you handle horizontal responsive views? Been struggling with this. It really kind of comes down to what the design actually needs. You know, sometimes we kind of struggle with creating designs and we think they should be a certain way, but maybe it's a case of approaching it from a different point of view. I'd need to kind of see what it is you're trying to do and trying to struggle with to kind of get an idea of what your, you know, where the issues kind of come in and how maybe I would look at approaching it to address the problems you have when you kind of move over to, you know, sort of a more responsive kind of views. There are so many different ways you can handle these different things, but without seeing what you're struggling with, it kind of limits what I could sort of suggest. MDN. Is JetForm Builder compatible with Bricks? I don't think so. I don't think it is. I know Jet Engine is mostly compatible and Jet Smart Filters is improving compatibility. And I think Jet Search is. I don't know about JetForm Builder, although isn't JetForm Builder basically Gutenberg anyway? So couldn't you just use it as drop a shortcode in and that would be more than enough? That would probably be the way that would be easiest to approach it, or you just create sort of Gutenberg-based content in there, but probably just using a shortcode would be the easiest way of doing it. But I don't know if it's compatible with it. I don't really use JetForm Builder. I found that it was way too long-winded to create forms compared to some of the other tools out there. Yeah. Raptor X, no problem at all. Enjoy your food. Atif, good to see you. Unfortunately, I'm just about to wind things down. So you are now the harbinger of doom, and you basically mean that the reason why I'm actually going to end the live stream in a few moments. But other than that, welcome aboard. Okay, so thank you so much for taking the time out of your afternoon to join in to this kind of last minute live. And I've been doing these this week and I think last week. Chances are I'll probably do some next week as well. So if you are about, by all means, keep an eye out. I will kind of try to post up a little bit beforehand to let you know that I'm going to be going live. So you're going to have a bit of a heads up, but I can never guarantee that. Other than that, it's Friday. Try not to work too hard. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe wherever you are. And I will see you all at some point next week. Again, like I say, thank you so much for joining in. Hope you've enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up before you leave if you have. I'll see you all soon. Take care.